This week on Quality Digest Live, 'tis the season for the creeping creep of Christmas. Who is that creeping creep?
The creeping creep. Well, I think it's us.
The creeping creeps of Christmas.
That's right. Plus, if you're doing digital busy work for the companies that you patronize, shouldn't you get compensated?
Yeah.
That's what I think. Well, we'll find out when we come back.
Today's episode of Quality Digest Live is sponsored by Olympus Vanta XRF analyzers. Fast material identification for safer products.
And welcome back to Quality Digest Live for November 17th, 2017. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
That's right, and I'm Quality Digest editor-in-chief, Dirk Ducharme. You know, Mike, a day shouldn't go by that we don't learn something new. Right?
Right, yes.
At least one day? Okay.
At least a week, yeah.
well, for me, that was, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold here. And for me, that day was actually this past Wednesday. Yeah, can I drink your water and give you some of my cold?
No.
That'd be awesome. Well, this Wednesday, I got to learn about something called light-controlled factories, which was covered in the appropriately named article, Developing the Light-Controlled Factory. How to explain this? A light-controlled factory is really just an extension, I think, the way I look at it, of kind of the technology and applications that you and I get exposed to, let's say, every year when we go to the CMSC show.
CMSC, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, using things like laser trackers and white light scanners, photogrammetry, and other large volume metrology equipment to not inspect, but to control processes on the factory floor. So we're not talking about using this equipment for measuring stuff and inspecting stuff to see whether it's to spec. We're talking about using the same technology to control other equipment. So, kind of in some of the white papers we've read and published, and in some of the stuff we've seen at like, Hexagon Live or at CMSC, you'll see stuff like standalone applications like using laser trackers or photogrammetry to improve the accuracy of industrial robots. So, when you see something like a Fanuc or a KUKA or whatever robot out there, they're big robots, but they're not extremely accurate when it comes to positioning. But if you monitor the, the end effector on them with a laser tracker or something else, you can use that to provide feedback to the robot to position that robot more accurately than it can do on its own. So that's one application. Or using the same technology for assembly, aircraft assembly, for instance. When you're going to align a wing to the fuselage, they're using this technology to help with that alignment, in real time to get that wing exactly where it needs to be. Improve the accuracy of machine tools, and a bunch of other stuff. Okay, so the light-controlled factory, in essence, is about pulling all these applications together to make a more efficient, cost-effective, and flexible factory. In other words, use all this technology to control, the robots, the CNCs, the assembly process, all throughout the entire factory floor. And there's a lot of goals that go on with this, but we can talk about just one of them. So one of the many goals of the research in the light-controlled factory is to investigate assembly alignment and machine position controlled in real time by this, large volume metrology systems, like what I just mentioned. So researchers in light-controlled factories are looking for positional accuracies, and for alignment we're talking about, between 10 and 250 microns, in the 10 to 30 meter range of assemblies. So one of the issues is in aerospace, for instance. We just mentioned that, wing alignment. A lot of you don't know this unless you work in aerospace. They build huge, gigantic, expensive fixtures.
Yeah, jigs.
These are just jigs to hold a wing in alignment, let's say, to the fuselage. These things cost millions of dollars. They're custom. They work for one type of wing on one type of plane, and that's it. The next generation of plane comes out, you can't use that fixture anymore on that plane. So basically they get stored. They're expensive, they're inflexible, and they're hard to change. So what if you could use robotic positioning equipment whose position was monitored and corrected by three-dimensional metrology equipment, you should be able to replace these custom fixtures with flexible ones. So for instance, kind of what I saw is kind of a generic jig, so a big assembly, but it had a bunch of, let's say, robotic elements on them that could, where the pitch and yaw and everything could be controlled, and the height and so forth. So you could put your wing onto this general purpose assembly, a general purpose fixture, and then the robots, assisted by 3D metrology, could position that wing right into the right position.
Again, to 10 to 250 microns.
Yeah, depending on the range that you're working on, from 10 microns to 250 microns, which is more than enough for what they're doing.
Sure.
And that same fixture could be used on a different plane. It would just be programmed different. Things would be positioned differently, and all that feedback going through large volume metrology, feeding back into the system to position it exactly where it wants. So this is going to cut just lots of time and money out of this process. And this is just one aspect of what the Light Control Factory is trying to do. Large volume sensors all over the place, adjusting for temperature, sag, all these pesky environmental variables, and creating a manufacturing environment that is more efficient and cost effective. So that's basically the light control, and there's a lot of issues that they have to cover. So the equipment is there, it's more the software and how do you coordinate all this and how do you compensate. I mean, you know, an aerospace assembly area is, you know, several football fields in floor space. Temperature gradients all over the place. All this has to be compensated for. So interesting topic. And so there's the paper on that in Quality Digest. It's kind of a primer for it. It touches on a couple of issues, but if you're interested, if you just Google light controlled factory, there's a lot of more, let's say, down to earth, easier to understand explanations of what's going on here.
But you did a great job of actually giving a good insight into what that is. That appeared in our CMSC World newsletter.
That was in the CMSC World.
On behalf of the CMSC. And I mean, this really is an area where the Coordinated Metrology Society really is helping, you know, aerospace in this case, but many different industries be more efficient, be more effective, and save some money. And that's really the point of all of this stuff, is to save some money. But yeah, those jigs are ridiculously expensive.
And they're custom. And it's almost like, okay, well,
one and done. Yeah,
one and done, you know.
Saving that money is a great thing. All right, thanks, Dirk. All right, well, our next item considers the meaning of higher education. Dirk, very astute of us to talk about higher education, I think. But specifically how it affects both job seekers and employers. A 4-year degree, and that of course was once looked at as the golden ticket to a great sustainable career. Well, it's now, I think I can just say it, it's kind of devolved to the point where it's really a bare minimum requirement for the lowest entry level McJob. So how did that happen and why? I mean, think about that. I mean, you know, a couple of generations ago, if you had a 4-year degree from a good college, you were kind of set, right? I mean, sure, if you needed a specialty career like law or medicine, you had to continue to go. But for many careers, four-year degree was, you were set, man. You were ready to go. But again, it's not that way now. So for some possible answers as to why that is not the case anymore, you can look at an article which appeared on the Courts at Work blog. Title of the article is Corporate America's Insistence on 4-Year Degrees is a Costly Mistake. And we linked out to in Monday's issue of the Quality Digest newsletter. There's a particularly enlightening statistic at the start of this article that really, in fact, gets to the heart of what's going on here. So let's take one little job, one little industry, one little particular function in particular. This is production supervisors. Now there are, according to this article, 600,000 production supervisor jobs in the United States today. Of those production supervisors, those who are on the job, just 16% currently hold a 4-year degree. However, 67% of current job listings for production supervisors require at least a 4-year degree.
It's not really required. I mean, we don't need you to have it because you don't really need it, but you got to have it in order to get hired.
To get hired. That really shows what's going on here. And this increase in requirements, it hurts, of course it hurts potential employees, but it hurts employers as well. I mean, for those that want these jobs, the need to get a degree can often create massive amounts of debt that might take these men and women years and not decades to pay off. We've seen that, of course. Many can't or won't take on the debt and thus are going to forego college. So there's a smaller than necessary pool of potential applicants for these jobs. And what does that do? Call it scarcity, right? The scarcity of applicants is going to drive up the cost to the employers in terms of salaries that they must pay to fill that jobs, because they have a smaller than necessary pool, because the requirements they've asked for may be above what the job really requires,
what's needed,
right?
Yeah.
So some organizations are taking steps to address this issue. Walmart, for one, is opening up academies to train managers in the kind of soft skills that they might expect from college graduates. And by the way, this is one of the things that the article talks about as a problem, is that a lot of companies want those soft skills, the ability to communicate and express themselves, and either verbally or through writing, email, whatever, in working with managing either employees or customers, whatever it may be. And that's one way of kind of assuring that you have the soft skills, maybe, is to say, well, we're just going to separate the wheat from the chaff, and only those with 4-year degrees we're going to hire. So Walmart's taking the opposite approach, to say, well, we'll train you in those soft skills after we get you in. We're not going to filter you out at the beginning. We're going to bring you in if you're a fit, and then we'll train you.
By the way, a lot of 4-year degrees don't necessarily mean you have those soft skills.
Anyway,
you have technical skills, but not necessarily soft skills.
Another one is IBM, and what IBM is doing is they're partnering with public education systems, to create 6-year high school programs to generate graduates with strong vocational skills. So you go to high school until you're 20 or so. You get out, and you've had now 6 years of training from the time you're a freshman in high school till you get out. And of course, the latter part of that's going to be very intensively focused on some of those vocational skills. And what this really tells us is that the skills gap, I think, is real, and there's a lot of reasons for it. But an overlooked one really is this increasing ramping up of minimum requirements for job applicants, and maybe they don't need the many requirements. And when you have that, you kind of exacerbate this problem with the skills gap, because people who maybe have the skills, but you filter them out because they don't have a 4-year degree, well, you're losing out. And again, you're then having to pay more for the people that you do get, because they say, hey, I'm a college graduate. I want 20% more than you want to pay, or you can pay, for somebody who doesn't have that degree. Yeah,
and I'm wondering if the growth in vocational training, which, as we've talked several times, is on the upswing.
I think it is.
Maybe companies will be looking more towards, I think maybe what they might be leery of, and just guessing, is, well, you only have a high school degree.
Right.
Well, maybe if they had a vocational degree, they wouldn't look as much to see for a college degree. I think they're making this differentiation between, you've only got a high school degree, well, that's not enough, so what's the next choice? Well, a college degree.
But what if you're a person that is incredibly intelligent, perceptive, and you have a lot of skill, but you happen to be born in an area or in a family that just doesn't have financial resources? And you're like, I can't go to college. But I'm an 18-year-old who's got a lot on the ball. And you don't even give that person an interview. Who's losing? They're losing, and you're losing too. So that's what they're talking about here. Really, really interesting article. Quartz at Work.
Quartz. If you've never seen it, it's a great website. A lot of interesting articles on there. Really well laid out website too.
Good stuff.
Okay, so it will be Christmas. Yes. In a little over a month.
5 weeks, yeah.
But we have been seeing Christmas decorations since
July.
The day after Halloween, exactly. Since July, and even early. In fact, according to a tongue-in-cheek article in Quartz magazine, we can expect to see Christmas decorations creep into July before the turn of the century. Well, they got a nice little trend line there. They kind of connect some dots, and you feel like, that kind of makes sense. July by 2100. 2100, sure. And that just does not set well with Quality Digest Ryan Day, as he writes in his column, Creepy Christmas. Foul that we should start on Christmas before Halloween is even cold in its Tupperware storage. That's what he writes. Before Halloween is even cold in its Tupperware storage. That's a great line.
Well done.
Because my wife actually stores all the Halloween stuff in Tupperware. Of course, we all understand why Christmas creeps into October. It's because retailers make the bulk of their year's sale, like most of their year's sale, in Christmas buying. So of course it makes sense that they want that period to be as long as possible. But it isn't even really that, I don't think, that rankles Ryan. I think what bothers him is what bothers many people during the season, and that is, regardless of, let's say, your religious beliefs, Christmas is supposed to be something special. It's supposed to be about family, or it's supposed to be about memories. It's about celebration, getting together with friends. And as Ryan points out, for some people, it might even be about the birth of Jesus Christ. It's not supposed to be about the money we spend. But sadly, it often is. And that, you know what? Again, I think that comes back to us. It comes back to the consumers. Yep. Ryan says something really interesting in his very last paragraph. Very last paragraph in the article. He writes, everyone has a right to celebrate Christmas in his own way and for her own reasons, or not celebrate at all. As for me, this is Ryan speaking, as for me, I am very happy and comfortable celebrating the life of Jesus in my own quiet way any and every day of the year. But as far as being swept up in arbitrary tradition and swindled by retailers, I say, bah humbug. Is that one little line in the middle. As far as being swept up, Ryan says, that's what it comes down to for me. You can choose to be swept up as a consumer or not. That is to say, do you buy for the sake of buying, getting swept up in all the advertising and hoopla and Christmas being shoved down your throat, so to speak, or do you buy with intent? And by that I mean, do you use the season to do something special for another person, whether it's a gift or an action, something you do? It is possible to turn the retail mania of the season into something special if we approach it right. And that's why I say buy with intent, give with intent. Think about the person you're buying for. Don't just randomly spend. Take a moment, pause, think. For some of you, maybe even pray. Take a breath. Think about the person you're buying for. Think about your wife. Am I just randomly buying a present for my wife, or do I stop and think? And I don't mean what would she like. I mean just stop and simply think about her.
Think about her.
Think about your kids. Think about the friend you're buying for. What does this friend mean to me? Why is this friend so special? Think about it. Not necessarily to choose the right gift, but just to spend the time to recollect that we've got family and members family members and friends that we care for, and then spend $500 on the Xbox One X for yourself. I mean, for your granddaughter, because I wouldn't buy the Xbox One X for myself.
No, of course not.
It's
never.
For my 6-month-old granddaughter, because I know she's going to need it at some point.
At some point, of course.
So I got to keep it warm for her. The other thing you can do, I think, and I say this every year, is just chill rather than get caught up in the shopping frenzy. Just chill out. Say hi to people. Make that one of your gifts. The gift of a smile to the overworked retail worker making minimum wage.
I've been there. I've been that person.
It's like I'm telling you. I mean, those guys got to. I mean, you just stand in line and watch. Those guys got to put up. Those guys and gals got to put up with so much crap sometimes. I mean, people are pulling their hair out.
It's their Christmas too, you know.
It's like when you come up to them, just be nice, be pleasant. Christmas may have become the ultimate in commercialism, but it doesn't have to be that way in your heart. You can choose to be swept up or not.
That's right.
There we go.
That's right.
I'll get off my soapbox.
There you go. Well, I always think about, I thought about it again when I read Ryan's article, is the Charlie Brown Christmas.
What's that?
You ever saw the Charlie Brown Christmas?
Right.
With the little tree.
With the little tree.
He bought a little tree with the leaves falling off, and they wanted him to get the big plastic tree. He said, no, Christmas is not about a plastic tree. It's about more than that. And I think it's right. Hey, I don't celebrate Christmas. I mean, it's like, but I get it. I've been swept up.
So your family? I mean, obviously you're Jewish. So your family didn't even partake in it at all. Or?
We'll say this, and there's a term that many people of Jewish extraction like myself know. It's called the Hanukkah bush.
Well, we had a Hanukkah bush.
You walk in,
remarkably like a Christmas tree.
You walk into a house, a Jewish person's house, and there's a big tree there, a big fir tree.
It's a Hanukkah bush.
It's decorated with the balls and everything. You're like, what is that? That's our Hanukkah bush.
Yeah,
okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a thing. But no, I mean, I've done it. I buy gifts for people at the time of year. Hanukkah's not really actually a big gift-giving holiday for other than kids. Yeah. But I mean, you buy gifts. I like to get swept up in it a little bit. A little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, the idea of having to buy 20 or 30 gifts would drive me nuts.
Oh my gosh, I gotta.
Yeah, that would be a lot for me. So, thanks, Jared. Really, thanks, Ryan. Really good, cute story there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, did you ever get the feeling, Dirk, that the companies and organizations that you choose to support are taking more from you than just your money? We just talked about that. They're doing it for the right reason, right?
Right.
Well, maybe they're also offloading all sorts of digital tasks on you too, and some of those things that you do for them actually make them more money.
That's interesting, right? I know what you're talking about.
I know
it's coming. Yep.
It's kind of a crazy situation, and to understand what this is really all about, I highly recommend, really great article that I enjoyed reading. Here's my review. Where's my paycheck?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I just did a review for you.
Yeah, and there it is right there. Here's my review. Where's my paycheck? Come on, stop doing companies' digital busy work for free. Well, it was written by Jordan Kramer. She's a visiting scholar and professor of anthropology at New York University. The article first appeared on the Conversation blog, another one that we like a lot. We ran it in yesterday's issue of the Quality Digest newsletter. Okay, well, Kramer's article, I think, is a fascinating one, that all those little digitally bureaucratic tasks that we do on our own time are a subtle, or maybe not so subtle way of these companies to make you an employee or worse, a slave. You think about it, right? I mean, after all, employees make money and slaves do not. And how much did you get paid for your latest Yelp review?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah? I mean, who's getting the advantage of that?
Yeah.
Somewhat other consumers, but really the company that you're supporting through Yelp, right? I mean, if you think about all the things that the typical consumer does for the typical online company, I mean, it's a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, Jordan, she says a few of them, and just things like, we said, reviews, you know, filling out surveys, going through portals or phone tree and navigating all that crap. I mean, it's like, you know, you have a portal they set up for your ease of use, but it really makes it a lot easier for them. Password maintenance. Changing your password, updating it. Security updates and patches. Understanding or reading or glancing at or thinking about licensing agreements before you check off the little box, right? Choosing service options, all the different service options you have to think about when you buy a new phone or any new application, right? What exactly do you want, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on and on and on. So how much do we get paid for any of this? I'll ask it again.
Nothing.
Zero. I mean, more to the point, how much do the companies we work with save by having us do all that digital busy work? I mean, think about all that stuff that all the litany of things I just ran down there. I mean, in theory, they could hire people to do that for us, right? I mean, they could have people do, maintain security and do all that kind of stuff, and do more to help us through the various portals and phone trees. They don't. They just basically say, hey, call this number and wait.
Right.
And then at the end, you have to give them a survey to tell them what you thought of their bad service. I mean, it gets worse. I mean, think about a company like Facebook. Now, you might think that posting an update on Facebook is work. Maybe you don't think it's work. I probably don't think that it's work. But all that stuff that you and I put on our pages can be used, and I use on Facebook. I mean, really, I'm using Facebook, but it's really any digital media site to drive what? Engagement, eyeballs, and revenue.
Sure.
For those companies, right? And again, let me ask for the third time, Dirk, how much do we get paid for all this?
Right. Yeah, you don't even get any incentives most of the time.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, basically, we are supporting their model. You, as the user, are also supporting their profit model, and you're making their business work for them. I mean, in the interest of transparency, the QD business model is not that dissimilar. I mean, our content is our offering, right? A lot of our content is contributed. A lot of the comments from readers are sometimes the most interesting things we have on the articles, or comments that readers put forward and share with other readers and contribute to the conversation. We don't compensate people for that stuff, right? I mean, so, our model kind of relies on that to a certain extent too. A lot of media companies do. I think eventually, in my opinion, I think models like the one that DigiMe, DIGI.me, have you heard of them? Interesting. Because I thought you had heard of them, but okay. But I think the model they've come up with is going to be prevalent. Now, DigiMe, again, that's DIGI.me, allows consumers to control their own digital footprint across the internet, and allows, for a fee, online advertisers to serve you ads. So you can permit, that your user, a user of whatever website, you can permit however many ads you want to be served to you. And you get a fraction of a penny for each one that you see.
Interesting.
Interesting model. Now, maybe something like that would work for online work. Maybe you get a fraction of some revenue for doing reviews, or for being willing to go through a portal online rather than just calling up and working with them. Maybe there's some sort of an incentive, and maybe you're going to get a cut of all those actions for all those posts and reviews and surveys and updates and agreements, opinions, options, content, etc. And then we would know how much we're getting paid for all this, right? I mean, eventually we would know, maybe. We'd have a sense for what we're actually doing here, as opposed to just giving it away for free. I mean, but that's the model that is going. And she's writing a book, by the way. Jordan Kramer's writing a book about this.
That'd be interesting.
And she's an anthropologist, so she's looking at it from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it does make it makes a lot of sense, but it really, I think the problem is that, and we've talked about this before, is the internet started off being so free that trying to build costs into it is an uphill battle.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it just does not generate the same revenue that print did and so forth. And so online companies, except for retailers.
but does it or not? Look how much money Facebook. Facebook doesn't make.
Sorry, you're right,
they don't make
yeah.
a ton of money right now, but the model is one that generates a lot of certainly investor interest.
Right.
I mean, it does and it doesn't. But the reason why it does is it's throwing on the backs of the consumers, the users, a lot of these tasks, and generating money off of those tasks.
And something like Amazon or Facebook or all those sites we have to log on to in order to really make use of their services. They could give you. I mean, Amazon in particular. I mean, get a $10 Amazon promo code every time you do X number of reviews.
Right, exactly right.
And it has to be a product you've bought. I mean, Amazon knows what you bought. So if you buy a product, you do a review. Yeah. They check off a box. You do so many reviews. You get some sort of benefit out of it. I mean, makes perfect sense.
Well,
right?
I mean, the technology is evolving to the point where we're so easily tracked. That's good and bad, but we're so easily tracked that it's really not a big deal to have our own personal accounts that would be basically funded by these interactions that we have. I mean, it makes sense, and I think it probably will. I think the Digi.me model makes a lot of sense. I think it probably is going to move that way.
I have to look at that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right. I was on vacation last week. Went to Disneyland.
You did?
I went to Disneyland.
How was Mickey?
I didn't see Mickey, but I did pay a lot of attention to what was going on when I was standing in line. And this is what I want to talk to you about.
You stand in line a lot at Disneyland.
And you stand in line a lot at Disneyland. But they have been very, very clever. On most of their rides where there's long lines, if you stop and look around, what you see around you as you're winding through, the Jungle Cruise or Indiana Jones, you walk through an environment. That environment is meticulously themed. There is nothing anachronistic. There is nothing outside the theme. You won't see on the, let's say, the Jungle Book or Indiana Jones, you see a old-fashioned looking light fixture, period accurate light fixture. You don't see a piece of modern Romex running into it, right? I mean, everything down to the wiring is period appropriate, right? Or theme appropriate, maybe if you're on the Cars ride or something like that. And what that does is it keeps the consumer involved while they're waiting 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour in line. It makes the line less tedious because there's all this stuff you can look at going on around you, and there's these interesting, scenarios. You look into, the telegrapher's booth, on the Jungle Cruise, and there's all this little detail and posters and postcards, and there's just so much detail in it, and it keeps you involved. So my question is there a takeaway from that idea of keeping the customer involved when they're having to do something that's onerous, like wait, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be other stuff. There's all sorts of stuff customers have to go through that they don't like, but they have to do. Is there some sort of takeaway we can take from Disneyland that we can apply to other areas other than just standing in line?
Well, here's the takeaway I have, is that when you say that, is those that have curated that experience for the users have really walked it and have really gone to the Gemba. In this case, the Gemba is where the customers are moving as opposed to where your workers are. They've really intensively, probably in teams, probably in several teams at several different points of time with different people with different disciplines, are looking at that very, very, very closely for a long time. Maybe they're doing an Ono circle. I wouldn't be surprised.
If I'm going to stand here for 30 minutes, what am I going to do?
I mean, they probably are doing it. I'm sure they are. They're saying, okay, we're going to stand here. We're going to move every minute up another step. And for 45 minutes, we're going to look at everything. It's almost like a slightly moving Ono circle. And we're going to see, okay, that doesn't fit, or that's a little offsetting, or that doesn't really mean anything.
Or this area right here is boring. We need something here to keep the customer involved.
But what I'm saying is Disney, because of the kind of company they are, and they're so focused on the experience, they're so focused on a submersive experience for their users, for their customers, is they pay attention to that and they've spent the time on it. And like I say, I'm sure it's teams of people.
Yeah.
So the takeaway, what you're asking is, how can other organizations do that? Well, you got to be devoted to it. I mean, many of us want to do the bare minimum all the time. You really do. If you think about it, most of us, when we're engaged in a project, want to get through it. We want to check that off our box. You need the kind of people that don't think that way, and very few people don't think that way.
Right.
So you need, if you want to have that experience, if you want to share that, replicate that experience with your users, you need people on your team that are devoted to outcomes and not checking something off a box to finish a job. Because there's no time limit on that. You're not going to say, well, this is going to take us a day or an hour or a week or a month. Who knows? You don't know. And I'm sure Disney doesn't have a limitless amount. I'm sure at some point they say, okay, we're going to cut this off and launch this thing or not.
Right.
But I think that's the right attitude, though. I think the people that you want to be doing that work should not have a clock on them. They should be doing it for the right reasons.
And by doing that work, you mean experiencing, walking the customer's shoes, that kind of thing?
It takes what it takes.
Okay.
And you go through that process, beginner's mind, you go through the process, you don't know anything, you look at it as a user would. And you can't have really necessarily an end game in mind.
Yeah.
Because the consumer doesn't know what's happening, the consumer doesn't know the point of all of this really until maybe they finish it.
Right, right.
So you have to go through with that point in mind, and that's the kind of person that you need. It's really a quality mindset, but it's a rare quality mindset.
Right.
And I'm sure Disney has people like that on the team. You know, they have director of consumer experience and
I'm sure.
people, all these kind of tasks and roles in the organization that we may not be familiar or be aware of, but they're there.
Yep.
And again, it's Disney. They're a huge organization, and this is their business. Their business is customer experience. So.
But every business has a customer experience associated with it. So you're saying
you need the right kind of people
to
have that. And you know, interviewing is important. You know, we talked earlier in the show about how you get the right people in your organization and what kind of requirements you need. Well, maybe a 4-year degree isn't really all that important in some cases. Yeah. But you want to talk to somebody and see, are they the kind of person that wants to finish a task, or do they want it to be exactly right and go back and do it again and do it again? You want that kind of persistence. And everybody's not like that.
All right.
So hire for that. I think my takeaway is hire for that. You know, interview for that, hire for that, and then you have a much better chance of getting that.
Okay. Well, there we go.
There's my takeaway.
All right.
All right, Dirk. Good job on your off script. I'll give one to you next week, man. Maybe not as interesting as that, as Disney World, Disneyland. All right. Well, that's our show for the week. But before we go, we want to thank our sponsor. The Vanta XRF Analyzer from Olympus provides fast, accurate elemental analysis when screening for lead, arsenic, mercury, and other toxic metals in consumer products like toys, apparel, and electronics to help support compliance with RoHS requirements. Other Olympus technologies include ultrasonic flaw detectors and thickness gauges, videoscopes, borescopes, industrial microscopes, advanced non-destructive testing systems, and a large selection of industrial scanners, probes, software programs, and instrument accessories. For more information, visit www.olympus-ims.com or click on the banner right just below or just to the right of this video player screen.
That's right. And that is the end of today's show. No show next week because it's
Thanksgiving break.
Thanksgiving break. And, Good Friday. I mean, not Good Friday, Black Friday.
Black Friday. Oh, that's a big one.
Which could be a Good Friday for some people.
Well,
not so good for others.
Don't be a creepy Grinch.
Yeah,
go out there and shop.
That's right. Go out there and shop. Spend all your money for people you don't know. That's right. All right.
That's right.
You all have a good holiday, Thanksgiving weekend and week.
That's right. We'll see you in 2 weeks back here.
That's it. Thanks a lot.
Bye.